welcome to the second episode of the Two Journeys to Employment series. Please welcome Gabby Gingras.
Advocacy is a learned skill, but I feel as though it's a skill you learn out of necessity.
Environmental science major.
It all comes back to being able to speak up for yourself and ask for help when you need it, which is a really good skill to have and something that I'm always trying to work on.
Tree expert and customer service representative.
Had so many resources and connections and learning about advocacy and how to function not only as like a student, but like an adult entering the workforce.
And now, here's Gabby Gingras. Hope you enjoy. Welcome to Blind Abilities. I'm Jeff Thompson. Today in the studio, we have Gabby Gingras, and she is a former peer educator at State Services for the Blind of Minnesota. Gabby, welcome to Blind Abilities.
Good morning, Jeff. Thank you for having me. Great to be here.
Thanks for taking the time and coming on and talking about your employment adventure, your journey. Let's clarify, what is a peer educator?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when I was working with SSB, it was like a brand new program when me and my other peer educators started it. And we really wanted to start the program of like helping younger blind and visually impaired students and like learn from their older blind and visually impaired students that have been through the very same things they have. We wanted it to be more like connecting rather than like something you had to do or that was less enjoyable, so to speak. So we came up with the term Peer Educator program, and we called it PEP for short, just because it was very fun. You know, you can do your PEP classes. So what we focused on during those classes and those programs we put together, this was back in 2020, just to give you like a time frame of when this kicked off. We were primarily working with high school students, but we worked with some middle school students as well, and just a really, really great group. And we helped prepare them for higher education, whether that was college, whether that was the workforce, really teaching them about accommodations and advocacy. We would even do scenarios and come up with, someone that you're interacting with in a potential college setting is asking you about your vision or your accommodations or your disabilities. Like, how would you respond? How would you deal with that? Teaching them about different assistive technologies that are out there that have helped us or kind of the things that we had been through. And it was amazing, like the group that we had and kind of that whole program that we kind of worked to start up. So it was awesome. Being a peer educator was so cool.
What a great way to let you know that you're not all alone on this journey.
It really was. At the end of that summer, we had some students that cried because, you know, it was like the last class and they had just felt so connected and got so much out of it. And I went in with like not knowing what to expect, and I came out of it going, what a cool opportunity and what amazing people are out there that like you are never alone, and there are always going to be people out there willing to help you and to teach you and to help you learn. And there's always going to be people that could benefit from you helping them and from you teaching them from what you've experienced.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because in my day, you just went to the college and maybe they had a disability services office and you kind of forged your own path. But when you're able to have peer educators and a group of people like that to talk about their experiences, it gives you at least there's breadcrumbs that you can kind of like follow along the way. It's still your journey, but it's nice to know that other people have taken this too.
Yeah, absolutely. It was really awesome. And there's a lot of fun people, and SSB was really helpful and has a lot of connections out there, and it's pretty cool.
Absolutely. So, Gabby, why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself and what you're doing today?
Yeah, absolutely. I graduated with my bachelor's degree in environmental studies. I'm passionate about the environment and conservation and helping wildlife in any way that I can for as long as I can remember. I've worked really hard to build up a career working in environmental services, and I just started working this year for Rainbow Tree Care. I work customer service, but it's a lot more complicated when you work in tree care than just customer service, like scheduling. You have to know about treatments and different tree species and answer environmental questions and know about the arborists, maps, and invasive species that are out there. And it's really cool. I love the company we work for. We're actually like the leading tree care company in the nation. And we even helped partner with the University of Minnesota to develop a treatment for Dutch elm disease, which was super cool.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's important because I remember the Dutch elm disease from years ago wiped out a lot of trees in St. Paul,
Yeah.
Minneapolis area. And now there's a big thing about ash.
All those historic elms right on the river in the cities. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, we're pretty much the only reason we have any elm trees left today in all of Minnesota. And you're right, like the emerald ash borer right now is like our main concern. It's at like peak infestation. And if you don't treat your ash trees now, like we're not going to have any in like the next 5, 10 years.
Yeah. We never knew about this stuff back in the day when I was a kid. People cut down trees. Now you can't cut down trees and transport them
Yeah.
like ash.
Yeah, you have to clean your equipment and tools after every time you interact with ashtrays and stuff. And you're right, like the tree care industry is very new and still developing. We're still learning a lot and changing our treatments from what we learn like year to year almost.
As people may be wondering, when you applied for the job and you got the job, how did you advocate for yourself?
Right from when I get a job offer, like post interview, I'm very upfront in saying I am visually impaired. And so, one of the nice things about what I do is I can primarily work remotely, and that already opens up a lot of accessibility. Like clears a lot of hurdles already, but I'm very upfront with my employers, with my colleagues. We do have in-person meetings that I do go into, so I'm just very honest with them and saying, "Hey, transportation might be an issue, but I'll figure it out." Or if we do ever have anything like for meetings and things, I just ask them to email it to me so I can zoom in and see it better and access it myself. And they've been super awesome. Or like if we have a Zoom meeting and they have a document pulled up, I'll just be very upfront and say, "Hey, can you zoom in?" Or I'll zoom in on my end if I'm able to. But
Hmm.
it all comes back to being able to speak up for yourself and ask for help when you need it, which is a really good skill to have and something that I'm always trying to work on.
How did you start working on advocacy? Did you always have that about yourself, or did it come by getting to know other people who were visually impaired?
That is a great question because advocacy is a learned skill, but I feel as though it's a skill you learn out of necessity. Because I went to public school throughout my education and going into college, and you gotta be willing to fight for yourself, essentially. Like, if you can't see something and you're taking a heavy load of honors courses, you're gonna fall behind quick. You said earlier about like carving your own path, and that's what it comes down to. I've got a lot of anecdotes about teachers not being very educated or like even willing to kind of let you have your accommodations.
Hmm.
And you just be like, "No, hey, this is something I care about. This is something I'm passionate about and I should have access to." And sometimes it can be hard because you don't want to be different and you want to be like your peers. But at the end of the day, if you want to do as well as you can in like an education setting or in a work setting, it's not even about giving yourself a leg up. It's just about doing what's best and what works best for you, if that makes sense. I don't know. I
Hmm.
hope I didn't get off track there, but
Oh, no, no. I suppose it's like having your own voice at your IEP meetings.
oh yeah, because you go to IEP meetings when you're little. I've been visually impaired since I was a toddler, and you kind of know what it entails.
Hmm.
But then once you get into high school, middle school, like you can be part of the conversation. And then my mom always talks about how back in elementary school, like when you were learning about money and like, okay, this is a dollar, this is a $5 bill, this is a quarter, I would just like put anything down because like I genuinely couldn't see anything. And I didn't know. And so she's like, "Well, you can't do that. You gotta actually learn and we gotta find ways to figure out how you can actually do this." I'm like, "Okay." And then, once I got older, I could have that ability and I had that voice. Like, I don't know, I just think of when I was in like high school geometry and I had like a code that they would give me every day so I could access whatever like our teacher was putting on the smartboard onto my iPad so I could see it closer and like take notes
Hmm.
on what they saw on the board. And like one time she forgot to give it to me and she was a bit of a, like, she's an awesome teacher, but she like forgot to give it to me. And she was like, our class was like really rowdy. And then she's like trying to quiet the class down. She like looked at me and like she shushed me. And I just like didn't say anything because she was kind of annoyed and like really getting in the flow of doing class. And then she's like, "Well, Gabby, why didn't you say anything? Why didn't you, like, I forgot to give you the code." I'm like, I did, and you shushed me. And the class went really quiet because, like, that was the first time I ever seen her, like, almost fall over laughing. She's like, you know what? You're totally right. Here you go. And I don't know. It's just a really funny story about advocacy and, like, how, like, yeah, you got to stand up for yourself. You got to speak up when no one else is gonna.
And that's a great skill to carry on into your college journey as well.
Oh yeah, even more so because you are your whole, like, there's no team behind you, like you and like whatever disability services office you have. When I went to college and things were changing so rapidly because I was in college during the heart of the pandemic,
Hmm.
and that brought up entirely new challenges. And that was really the first time I've ever been on my own before. So it was like a whole different ball game. And you learn really quick of what works and what doesn't, and how you can handle different things that are tough. And you also make a lot of cool friends and meet a lot of amazing people. College was awesome. I still, even if the pandemic really put a damper on things, I had an amazing time that I'm very grateful for.
You mentioned the iPad as a tool that you're using. What other assistive technology pieces of equipment do you utilize?
I do whatever I can online and zoom in as much as I can to reduce like eye strain, and audiobooks can be great assistive tools. Like, I read a lot, so it can be really great if I'm too tired for my vision. And other assistive technologies that I'm using more, like, I don't really know if it counts as assistive technology, but like transportation can be a big one.
Hmm.
So I'm getting more familiar with like rideshare services like Lyft. Transportation can be almost really scary for visually impaired folks. I'm sure you're aware, but I'm doing the difficult things and learning and growing as much as I can, which is cool.
Do you use any type of magnification like when you're out and about, when you're not in front of your computer or iPad?
I essentially use my cell phone as my assistive technology tool. Like, I just pull up my camera and, like, say I can't read a sign. I just pull up my camera setting and like use it to zoom in. And well, it's not perfect, and because I have training, I shied away. One thing I told my peer education students that I taught was, do as I say, not as I do, because growing up I was so afraid to be perceived as blind or visually impaired that I specifically steered away from having a guide dog, using a cane, and like I didn't develop those skills quickly enough where like I just like didn't incorporate them into my daily life.
Hmm.
And I don't recommend my students doing that. Like, it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to be different. And like, everyone has something that works for them. Like, everyone's different and things are going to work different for different people. But yeah, I pretty much just use my phone for things I can't see. There's a lot of great apps and things out there.
How did SSB, State Services for the Blind in Minnesota, how did they play a part in your journey and even up to where you're looking for a job?
I worked with SSB like all throughout high school, and they really worked with me finding like different assistive technologies that helped. I did orientation and mobility training in like different student groups with them back when I was a student. And then once I was junior, senior in high school, they really worked with me and encouraged me to apply for scholarships through NFB, like National Federation of the Blind. And I did end up winning some pretty significant scholarships, and even had the opportunity to attend the National Convention of the Blind, and just had so many resources and connections and learning about advocacy and how to function not only as like a student but like an adult entering the workforce was just super incredible. You learn a lot you're not expecting to necessarily. And then that kind of transformed into as a college student and like working. And then I was, like I said, able to be a member of the peer education team and help students. So it's kind of cool. Like, was a part of SSB from like both sides.
Oh, that's cool. What led you to Rainbow Tree? How did that come about, finding it, applying for it, and how'd you go about that process?
That's a great question because even people that don't face challenges or have visual disabilities, especially younger people just entering the workforce, were having a super, super difficult time even getting any interviews. I had been working for AmeriCorps and I did an internship, but now I was looking for like a real full-time job and I was just struggling. My best case scenario would have been working in an environmental field and something that would be like working with my background in environment and sustainability. But at that point, I was just hoping for any job, like anything I could feasibly do, just anything for experience and to build up my resume. And I was desperate. Like I had done a couple interviews and like nothing had like fallen through. And one of my friends back in college was actually working for Rainbow as on their tech crew, like actually doing the treatments and injecting trees. She graduated same year as me and was my same major. And we talked all the time. And I'm always like, oh gosh, that's really cool. And we had some really in-depth conversations about forestry and management. And they had kind of been on my radar for a while, but then I saw that they had remote customer service job openings and was like, okay, I'll apply. Like at that point, I was applying for like everything, you know what I mean? Just anything to get my foot in the
Hmm.
door. That was the only interview I had ever had where they actually hired me on the spot. They're like, one quote from my boss now, I love her, she's amazing, was just from your bright, bubbly personality, and I can hear the passion that you have for the environment and what you do. Like, I can tell you're going to be a perfect fit. Like, I'm giving you the green light right now and just saying, like, I'm immediately hiring you. And I was blown away. Like, I had never been hired in the, like, essentially in the middle of a job interview. I was blown away. I'm like, okay, let's do this.
How did it really feel?
I almost cried. Like, I was like, God, this is life changing. And I've worked so hard to get to this point. My dad always like calls me like a bit of a dreamer or whatever. And I'm like, this is it. I'm doing the things and here are all my dreams lining up all of a sudden.
Well, your excitement in it when you were just talking about it earlier on, I mentioned ash tree and you went into the ash tree and stuff like that. I do woodworking, so I know different woods and stuff.
Oh, that's fascinating. I love
I
that.
have mountain ash wainscot around my dining room area, and that's ash.
Mountain ash trees are actually one of the only like varieties of ash trees that are more resistant to the emerald ash borer. I'm just like a fountain of tree knowledge now, and I love to pull it out for anyone that'll listen.
Well, that's why they hired you because I caught it right away. I just mentioned something I heard about, and you knew about it, and you can explain it. It's just awesome.
Yeah, we have like an entire eco science team, and I work more for like the tree care side, but we're all like the same company. And one of our like company values is the environment and anything we can do to not only like mitigate harmful effects, but also how can we build it up? How can we make it even healthier and do what we can for all the trees and the entire ecosystem that we work with? And it's just amazing.
What advice do you have for high school students, college students? You know, I mean, through your journey, you've been there, you've done that, you're employed. What advice would you have for someone entering their own journey?
Yeah, so this has kind of been an underlying theme of our talk today, but also like my entire life is it's okay to ask for help and it's okay if you don't know how to do something, like you can learn and it doesn't really matter if you're different because like everyone's different and it can be scary, but if you want to go far and like do the things you want to do in life, like you're gonna need help. Like you don't have to do it, or you shouldn't do it all on your own. And there are people out there that will not only help you, but it'll be awesome, and you can learn so much. Like I said earlier, like different things work for different people, so it's okay to try new things and do what works best for you. And don't be afraid to speak up for yourself. Like we talked about advocacy, but that's so important because if you don't stand up for yourself and you don't have that voice, then who will, right?
Right.
The other thing I would just want to say, because eight, 9 years ago, I was just confined to a hospital bed. And at that point, I just want to go home. I didn't think I would ever get to college or I didn't ever think I would even have a job. Just like keep trying. Like you don't know how things are going to go ever. Like just keep trying. Just do the things you think are difficult because even if you don't think it'll be worth it or even if you don't think anything will come of it, there's no harm in trying. And there are people out there that no matter how much vision they have or how much mobility or what things that have been really hard that they've been through in life, like that will have awesome things happen to them later on and will have good experiences. You just got to hold out and have hope. And resilience, I think, is a great trait to have.
That's awesome. I want to throw something new at you here. What hobbies do you have? Do you have any hobbies?
Oh yeah, I've got a couple. I'm a huge cat person. I just adopted a shelter cat, not a shelter cat, but he was a rescue. He's 10 months old. His name is Rocky. He's my little kitty. I'm a just big cat person. I love cats and animals and the environment, all that. But I also am really big into reading, writing. I play Dungeons and Dragons sometimes. I want to get more into it. I'm not part of any campaigns right now, but I want to be. So I read a lot. I write a lot. I love to go on walks. And I'm a big birder. I bird by ear mostly. And there's also cool apps that you can have that'll tell you like what birds you're hearing, or if you take a photo of even like a bird you can't see, but it'll tell you like the species.
Have you heard of the Merlin?
Yes, that's the app I'm talking about. I have the Merlin app. I love the Merlin app. If you don't have the Merlin app and you love birds, you got to get the Merlin app. It's the coolest thing like
Oh
I've
yeah.
ever had ever.
I was trying to figure out what this was out there, and you can actually hit record, and it'll
Hmm.
come back and tell you what, there were like four different birds going off, and one was an pileated woodpecker. That's what I was looking
Yes,
for.
I love pileated woodpeckers. They're huge.
Oh yeah. So every morning last summer, well, not every morning, but in the morning, I would go out there and there would be the affiliated woodpecker sound. And the other thing is you on that app, you can look up different birds and hear what they sound like.
Yes, and I took like a vertebrate natural history class in college, and I can ID birds on my own via the sound and calls pretty good. But if
Hmm.
I'm not sure about something or if I hear something new, I will check Merlin and do my best to figure out what bird it was. Me and my dad would have competitions about how many birds we could log in Merlin or like record. It was very fun.
I was shocked at the pileated because you don't find them around too much.
No, like they're the largest species of woodpecker native to Minnesota, but they can be a really fun find. I think the most interesting bird I've gotten on Merlin is either the great horned owl recorded,
Oh, really?
and then I've gotten Santo cranes. So there's actually by where my parents live, there's like a nature reserve, like a state forest. And we go in the wildlife refuge and there's some really, really cool birds you can pick up. Like I've gotten the Santo cranes, double crested cormorants, just some cool birds out there.
I think it's really neat that you take the time. I mean, everyone should take the time to just stop and listen sometimes and see what nature's out there.
Yes.
That's great.
Yes.
Well, Gabby, thank you so much for coming on and sharing all about your journey, your hobbies, everything. And hopefully the listeners will take from this because you don't have to do it alone, as we said earlier.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me, Jeff. It's been amazing. And yeah, I hope people out there got something out of it. And I hope I was able to put some good in the world.
You sure did. Thank you. Such a great time talking to Gabby Gingras. And be sure to check out episode 1 of the Two Journeys to Employment series with Kat Wilkie. You'll find the links in the show notes. To find out more about all the programs at State Services for the Blind, contact Shane.DeSantis at state.mn.us. That's Shane.DeSantis at state.mn.us. Be sure to contact your State Services for the Blind, your Voc Rehab, and find out what they can do for you. Live, work, read, succeed.
When we share
what we see
through each other's eyes, we can then begin to bridge the gap
between the limited expectations and the realities
of blind abilities.